Hey, it's MA. Audio compression is awesome, and it makes all the difference to your audio and how you hear it. There's no such thing as loudness, but it makes things louder. It's one of the reasons why some songs sound quiet and some songs sound loud. We're gonna look at compression from a music production side of things, like how some elements in a track sound louder than others, the different types of compressors, and how they work. This one's juicy, so hold on tight. First, we're gonna go over dynamic range. Have you ever met someone so dynamic you see it in their voice? Whoa! I'm such a dynamic person. See? This new variation going up and down, that's dynamics. The range is the difference between the highest and lowest points. And compression is basically reducing that dynamic range. This new difference between the highest and the lowest variation, it has a lower dynamic range. These are the works of compressors, and this is how you tell them how to compress for you. Let's take a look at this waveform just like we did with my voice. First, we're gonna get a couple things prepared, like how loud the signal needs to be before we start compressing. Let's go with here for now. You'll see the compressed signal on this side, so let's turn it on. The waveform's less dynamic, but altogether smaller. But if we make up for that size and fill up all that headroom, look how much louder it feels. And that's it, right? Well, almost. At the moment, it's on the harshest setting, so it sounds like shit. But we can turn that setting down and actually release some of that dynamic range. So those are the two main elements of a compressor. You then have your attack and release knobs, which make your compressor react slower. That's if you want that front little initial impact of your snare, otherwise known as the transient, to still be punchy. You did it! That's it! Here's your diploma. That's the basics of every single compressor. So let's start compressing. Wait, where the hell is the attack and release? Nah, it's probably broken. Wait, it's not in this one either. Attack, release. Oh, it's in here. We've got attack and release. It's all good. And we have the rate. But wait, where's the threshold? Threshold! Threshold! No! It's okay. They're not broken. There's just various types of compressors. We'll be looking at optical, VCA, and FET. So don't FET. Get it? There's also a bunch of other ones, but we'll take a look at them next time. The ones we just saw in that montage were optical compressors. These don't have attack or release knobs because these parameters depend on how the music initially hits the compressor. They're predetermined for you based on the sound, and we'll be going over the awesome ways in which it does that. But for those people that want a quick answer, the attack is 1.5 milliseconds or less, and the release is 0.5 to 5 seconds depending on how hard the signal hits initially. Check this out. Think of it like a light bulb that's powered by audio instead of electricity. That light can come in relatively fast when the signal hits, but when it leaves, it takes a shorter but longer amount of time to fully die out. That's how this compressor reacts, and it's what makes it the slowest type of compressor. The ratio works the same way. The harder the signal hits, the more it's like a limiter. In terms of the threshold, you can think of the signal as always being under the threshold, but the amount of compression will be at nil until you can change the brightness of that bulb. This is what the peak reduction knob does. Keep in mind that the visuals have been exaggerated dramatically to convey how light can react with audio. Optical compressors don't actually use light bulbs, but instead use luminescent panels or LEDs, and in real time look something like this. Now let's take a look at VCAs, where your sound's volume is voltage controlled. So the track that's going into your compressor is converted to voltage, which controls the volume of the output, aka the voltage that controls the amplifier. So this allows for a lot of control. For example, the threshold, the ratio, the attack, and release, and so on. Now the thing in common with all these compressors is they tend to in some way use their own signal to duck down the track. The optical converts the audio to a light which communicates with the light-dependent resistor to resist the music. And the VCAs use the music itself as a voltage to directly handle the sound, hence giving the user more input or control on how it compresses the main signal. Because the VCAs use voltage, it's far more transparent. Transparency in audio is how little that audio effect or device affects the tone of your sound. In the case of most other compressors, turning up high values on one can lead to distortion or more saturated sound. In other words, though there is compression in the audio, there's relatively less distortion or additional texture in VCAs compared to other compressor types. And that brings us to the FET compressors. So when the FET uses the signal, it first goes through a bunch of resistors, transistors, and all of that circuit stuff before it ducks your original music down. This is something that makes it far less transparent and non-linear in regards to the way it affects the frequencies at different rates. FETs are also pretty interesting in that the threshold is already set for you. It's fixed in one place by the circuit. So instead of putting the threshold down, you gotta encourage your signal to go to it by adjusting the input. However, along with that gorgeous compression, you'll find that the overall signal gets too loud, so we adjust the output to bring it back down, keeping the levels comfortable and the dynamics slow. Hey yo, this gets way juicier. I'm talking about the way ratios work in FET compressors. Check it out. So you have your original track. Some of that goes down another line. It's amplified like crazy and goes through a bunch of signal reducers, or in other words, resistors, so it goes quiet again. And that's gonna be the new signal that turns down your output. We can think of them as dams. Each one can restrict enough flow before it lets the rest of the water go through. Spin it. By default, these dams are all on, which reduces the signal enough to not compress your track a noticeable amount. But you click a ratio button and bam! It bypasses one of the dams, letting a larger stream of flow going through. And the larger the flow, the more reduction or compression there is on the track. The cool thing is, you can press these ratio buttons to decide which dams are to be bypassed, choosing how much you want your signal to get compressed. It's subtle, but the differences are far more noticeable as you increase your input. Now, if all dams are bypassed, you get that huge full stream of that 26 decibel signal flow, pushing down your signal dramatically. Let's take a listen. Here's all of them. The 1176 has this little industry trick where if you press down the 4 and the 20, it automatically bypasses all the dams and it immediately gives you the full flow. A lot of compressors have an all or a slam button instead, which also accomplishes the same result. And you've done it, folks! That's how you get compression! Personally, for this video, I've looked at the Teletronics LA3A and the wave simulation of the model for the optical example. And for the FET, I looked at the popular 1176. But compressors can come in a variety. For example, some VCAs may have different algorithms on attack and release, or some opticals may even have combinations of elements from other compressor types. Do refer to the manuals of each individual compressor. They tell you a lot. So next time a music producer comes up to you and says, "Compressor, compressor," he's not talking about his wife. Bye!